Hello, this is Jose Luis here at Parametric Camp, and welcome to another video in this mini series crash course on the BeeGraphy platform, or I'm not even sure how we're going to call this playlist at this point. But in this first hands-on exercise, what I would like to do is to practice modeling something with the BeeGraphy Editor. And for this video, I've chosen a very simple exercise, modeling a pearl necklace. Okay, and as you can see, we have modeled it with a BeeGraphy editor, including this very nice and very nifty curve editor for the shape of the necklace, as well as introducing parameters for the amount of pearls. You can see that as I change things, the number of elements is updating, and you can see that here in the viewport, I can rotate and see the results of my parametric model. And again, for those of you who might be new to the channel, what's really interesting is that everything that I'm doing right here is purely web-based, using my browser. No downloads, no installs, no nothing. Everything is cloud-based, web-based, which is really, really nice. Okay, so if you want to learn how I made this, just stay here with us in the video. And in the meantime, if you like what we do, maybe you want to consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, all those things that we do these days in nice YouTube communities. All right. How are we going to do this? Let's take a look. Beautiful. Let's get started. But before we start, I would like to remind everyone that this is an exercise, the pearl necklace. This is an exercise that we've already done in this channel in this other visual programming environment called Grasshopper. So if you want to learn about the way, the logic, and how do we break down a curve into parts, etc., I already explained how to do it in this video. What is the logic about the diameter of the balls and the splitting of the curve, etc. So if you want to learn more, I recommend that you check this video, whose link is going to be in the description of this video, and is also going to be popping up as a card somewhere on the top of the corner in this video. Okay, beautiful. So we're going to go to the BeeGraphy editor. All right, and if you remember this, we are here at BeeGraphy, so I'm already logged into my account. I'm going to go to the editor, and I'm going to create a new model called Pearl Necklace Life. All right, beautiful. Then we're going to land in the BeeGraphy editor, which we have already explained in the previous video. So in this series. So the first thing that we're going to do is, if you remember from the from this video on how to model a pearl necklace, is that the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create some kind of curve, which is going to be basically the axis, if you will, of the necklace, and then we will subdivide that curve into however many pearls do we want, and we will decide what the radius of those pearls should be. All right. So BeeGraphy, as of right now, does not come with geometry import capabilities. So it's a purely standalone parametric modeler. So you can't really import models yet. My understanding is that the team is working on that right now. But the thing that we can do is we can, inside of BeeGraphy, we can add a modeler for this parametric curve that we want to control. All right. So the way we're going to do that is by, I'm going to type control points, and actually let me, no, where is this? Give me 1 second. Yes, so if we go to input, inside of inputs, we have sliders, we have Boolean inputs, etc. And we have this really nifty, very nice input called the curve editor. The curve editor is basically this UI-based editor that allows me to drag and drop the control points of a NURBS curve, and then I can use that to model a curve in 2D. All right, you can see that whatever I'm modeling is showing up here on the view. Okay, so what are we going to do? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding here a few more control points, and then I'm going to close the curve, which I'm going to close here. Okay, so I'm going to move it here. I'm going to add more points, and All right. And I do that by double clicking here. Okay. So you can see how I'm adding all these points and I'm dragging them over here. Okay. So we can probably start with, you can probably start with this. Is this a shape that we like? Well, I don't know that I'm very excited about it, but it's okay. It serves the print. Okay. So again, we use this component called Curve Editor that gives us this really nice UI to control the control points of a NURBS curve. All right. Once we do that, we have the curve here. We can actually see the data that is flowing in and out of components by using the panel component. The panel component is basically a debug tool that allows you to see what is coming out of a set of components, for example, right? Beautiful. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this curve and we're going to subdivide it by a controlled amount of points. Those are going to be the center of the pearls that we're going to use to populate this necklace. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say divide by count, and you can see that right now I have this divide by count a curve. So I'm going to plug in the curve here, and you can see that I already subdivided it in 4 elements. Well, but I do want to have control over that. So I'm going to just say here range input, and I'm going to place here a slider, but this slider I'm going to configure it so that it can only snap to whole values, so to integers, right? And the maximum is going to be 50, for example, and the value is going to be 10. So I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to say here number of pearls. All right, beautiful. I'm going to plug this in here, and you can now see that the more pearls, the more subdivisions, the more points I get. One very nice feature about BeeGraphy is that I can now go onto the window and I can click on an element. And if I click on the element, it will tell me where is that element coming from. So you can see that basically the UI just zoomed into divide by count, which is the component that is creating all these points here. This is a really, really nice feature because very often we have a lot of geometry on the viewport and we don't know which components are generating that geometry. So this idea of clicking and seeing and highlighting which component is creating that geometry, I find it a very useful feature. All right, beautiful. So now we have the points. We have also the tangents at the curve on those points. We have the parameter, so the value from 0 to 1 or other that is telling us where those points are on the curve. So what I would like to use now is these points as the center of the pearls that I'm going to create. So I'm going to go here and say sphere. I'm going to create a bunch of spheres with this origin. Okay, and you can see that right now it created all these spheres right there, and you can actually see that it feels like they're almost tangent to each other. So I'm actually going to go to top view, and you can see that they're actually pretty tangent to each other except for some areas here. But this is misleading because actually if I were to increase or decrease, it was just a coincidence, right? Right now the radius of the sphere is a hard-coded value. But what we need to do is we need to estimate what that radius should be based on the length of that curve. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the curve, we're going to calculate its length, we're going to divide the length by the amount of pearls, and that should be the diameter, not exactly, but approximately the diameter of each one of these pearls. All right. So easy peasy. So we have the curve. We need to calculate the length of the curve. So how am I going to do that? I see that I type length here and I get this component called curve length. Okay, so I'm going to now go here and I get the length, and I'm just going to drop a panel just to see what's going on here. And I can see that the length of this curve is 652 units, whatever those units are. All right, and then I'm going to subdivide that length by the amount of pearls that I have. So I could do, I could do that numerically using the math components here, but you already know me. you actually know that I like expressions. So here in inputs, there is the math expression component that allows me to write a mathematical equation that gets evaluated, right? So here, I'm going to plug in the length. And then here, I'm going to create another input. And how did I create more inputs? Yes, so here, add port. You see that I click on one of the inputs and I clicked on add port, all right? So the number of pearls is going to be here. And then what I would like to do is I would like to say the result of this needs to be the length divided by the amount of pearls. But actually, because what I want is the radius, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 2 times the amount of pearls, all right? The number that I'm going to get is going to be whatever, 40, right? And then that is the number that I'm going to feed here to the radius of this sphere. And you can see that now they are a little bulgy, right? And at the areas where I have a lot of curvature, it's not very natural, all right? So maybe I can reduce those extreme curvatures. But if you can also see that if I increase the number of points, now the size of the pearls adapts correspondingly, which is also quite nice, okay? Beautiful. So we have pretty much completed the exercise here. All right. The only thing that I would like to do is I would like to perhaps beautify a little bit the output that we get on the viewport, because you can see that the default shader is this kind of like random colors for each one of the pearls. What I would like to do is I would like to change that to something a bit more steady, a bit more controllable, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to material, to apply materials. And this is basically a component that allows me to create a material and apply it to any kind of geometry, right? So for example, here to the spheres, I'm going to apply this like, I don't know what it is, the color. I guess can I create a color picker? Yes, so I'm going to create a color picker, and that's going to be some kind of orange here. All right, and then the color is going to be orange, you see? Or if I make it green, then green it is, you see? And now things are a little more homogeneous, all right? Another thing that I would like to do to beautify this a little more is that you can see that now I have modeled the spheres, but I still see the dots, the centers of those spheres, the points that I used to create the spheres. So I know that if I click here, it's sphere, the origin is this divided by count. So something that I can do is I can hide this component so that it doesn't show up on the pre-visualization here. Okay, beautiful. All right, and I think with that, I am pretty much done. All right. Now, you may ask yourself, all right, you created the parametric modeling editor. Now we have all the pearls, but now I want to download them because I want to now render them in some software. I want to 3D print them, whatever. How do I do that? Well, that's a very good question, and I would like to address that question farther down the road in this series of videos when we start talking about the market. Okay, it's not necessarily that you need that, but go if you're interested in that, circle back into the next video or in 2 or 3 videos in this series when we talk about exporting geometry and publishing models to the market. Okay, until then, I think the next video in this series is going to be another hands-on example to just give you a sense of how the BeeGraphy editor works. Okay, we're probably going to model the Holocaust the Berlin Holocaust Memorial in the next exercise. All right, beautiful. Okay, well, then see you on the next video. Bye bye.